I just got off the phone with the investor. He thinks your AI model is revolutionary, Matt. I said it evenly, without a flicker of emotion. My voice was calm, almost bored, but inside, I was vibrating. Matt leaned back in his sleek leather chair, lossing his fingers behind his head. Of course he does. We're going to make history with this pitch, he said, grinning like a man who thought he'd already won. The morning sun glinted off the Innovatex lanyard around his neck, the same lanyard he'd taken from my desk 3 days ago, with my name still faintly marked on the back. He hadn't even noticed. As he reviewed the final slides on the touchscreen, slides I had built, data I had trained, architecture I had designed, he had no clue he was walking into a trap. No idea the algorithm he was about to showcase to 300 top investors was going to crash in front of every single one of them. And when it did, they wouldn't just see a failure, they'd see the name I embedded in the source code. They'd see me. Matt thought he'd stolen my idea. He didn't realize I had been 10 moves ahead since the day he took credit for my work. 6 months ago, I was just another quiet developer tucked away in Rand D. Camille Zhang, the girl who never spoke up in meetings, who ate lunch at her desk, who fixed broken code without needing praise. I didn't wear designer heels or play office politics. I just built things. Beautiful, scalable, bleeding-edge things. But being good wasn't enough. The day it happened, I remember every detail. It was a Tuesday. I had stayed up 3 nights straight fine-tuning the final version of a neural network model I called FeatherNet. Lightweight, fast, and insanely efficient, it could run complex natural language processing on edge devices with minimal latency, a game-changer. I had the proof of concept, the tests, the results. I was excited, nervous. I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd finally made something too good to ignore. I shared it in a team sync-up. Matt nodded along, barely glanced at the documentation. Interesting, he said, before moving on to ask the intern about coffee orders. 2 weeks later, there was a buzz in the office. Matt had landed a one-on-one with the CTO. Rumor was, he had something big. I didn't connect the dots until someone forwarded me a company-wide email introducing MNode, a revolutionary AI framework designed by our very own Matt Carrington. I opened the attachment. Line by line, it was my code. He had changed 2 variable names, slapped a new logo on it. And suddenly, it was his idea. I brought it up, politely, carefully. Matt, I think there's been some mix-up with credit, he laughed. Camille, come on. You're great with back-end stuff, but ideas. Strategy. You've got to learn how this game works. He patted my shoulder like a mentor dismissing a child. HR told me it was a gray area. Ideas developed on company time belong to the company, they said. And Matt's leadership is a key part of execution. Maybe next time, bring him in sooner. I stood there, blinking, watching as the bonus email came through. $50,000. For innovation leadership. He didn't even thank me. That was the day something in me snapped, not in anger, in clarity. They thought I was too passive to fight back. They forgot, I don't talk much. But I build things. And I had just started building my revenge. Matt thought I was just a back-end developer with decent debugging skills. He never asked why I was always the last to leave the office, or why I didn't join the company happy hours. He didn't know that at night, I wasn't just polishing his code, I was building entire frameworks from scratch. For fun. He didn't know I'd placed top 5 in the International Youth Code Off at 16. That my name was buried in the acknowledgements of a major open source security project. Or that I used to hack university servers, not to steal data, but to fix their exposed ports and leave behind notes labeled, from someone who could have done worse. I never bragged. Never needed to. But I kept everything. Slack logs. GitHub commits. Original sketches. Video screen captures of my terminal as I coded Feathernet from the ground up, timestamped and synced to Google Drive. I even had a private email thread with an external consultant I had consulted for the model's compression layer before Matt ever laid eyes on it. But the real power wasn't in the proof. It was in the trap I built. Deep inside M-Node, what Matt thought was his model, I had left behind a dependency chain. A security handshake that only responded to my private server. On the surface, everything would look perfect. But once scaled for a demo or deployed beyond test mode, it would crash. Quietly. Elegantly. Irreversibly. And when it did, the system would display a single line of text. Code execution failed, unauthorized deployment. It was my insurance policy. I never expected to use it. But the moment Matt tried to destroy my career and take everything I'd built, I decided to let it trigger. What Matt mistook for silence was calculation. What he read as obedience was observation. He was so busy underestimating me, he didn't realize I was already 5 layers deeper than he'd ever dared to look. He was playing for glory. I was engineering consequences. What started as a stolen idea turned into something much bigger. After Matt passed M-Node off as his own, something shifted in the company. Suddenly, he was the golden boy. He was taking calls behind closed doors. Sitting in meetings with C-suite execs. I'd catch glimpses of him pacing around the office with that confident swagger, dropping buzzwords he barely understood: edge learning, federated compression, dynamic tokenization. All terms pulled from the white paper I wrote. Then one Friday, I overheard him say it. "Yeah, we've soft launched the startup in stealth mode. Using internalip for now, gray area. You know how it is." That was when I realized he wasn't just stealing credit. He was building a business on it. Matt had formed a shell company using a proxy name, Caratech Labs, and registered a nearly identical product to mine. The audacity wasn't even the worst part. What made my stomach twist was that he was leveraging company resources to fund it: equipment, data sets, even 2 junior devs, who thought they were helping build a confidential product for a corporate client. They didn't know they were being used. And now, he was about to demo it on the biggest stage possible. Innovatex, a high-profile pitch event where top VCs handed out 7-figure investments to disruptive tech. Matt had secured a 10-minute slot right after the keynote. The company thought he was there representing our team. In truth, he was going to pitch M-Node as his private venture. The stakes: $10 million in early-stage funding and a press release in TechRift magazine. Meanwhile, back at HQ, I was under HR review. Matt had preemptively filed a complaint, claiming I had tried to steal his code and manipulate version control. It was a classic power move. If I pushed back, I'd look unstable. If I stayed quiet, I'd be complicit. I realized then, I wasn't just fighting Matt anymore. I was fighting a system that protected him. That rewarded the loudest voice in the room, not the most capable mind. So I stopped playing defense. I stopped trying to reclaim credit. Instead, I prepared to destroy his credibility in front of everyone who mattered. The day I got the HR warning letter, I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. I walked back to my desk, opened a new terminal window, and quietly got to work. I knew what Matt's fatal flaw was: he never bothered to understand the tech he stole. He knew just enough to pitch it, to bluff his way through a demo, but not enough to see the trap he was carrying straight into the spotlight. Over the next few weeks, I began laying out my plan. First, I refined the failsafe embedded in M-Node. It was buried inside an innocuous-looking utility class, process_init. A single line of code that would perform a remote key handshake, silently checking for authentication from my secure server. If the key failed, the model would run perfectly for 60 seconds. Then the whole thing would crash, displaying the message: unauthorized execution. Please contact the rightful upholder, Camille Zhang. Untraceable. undeniable. Perfectly legal. Second, I reached out to Ellen Rivera. She wasn't just any investor, she was the keynote speaker for Innovitex and a staunch advocate for ethical tech and female founders. I sent her a private message on LinkedIn. You don't know me yet, but the product Matt Carrington will demo at Innovitex is mine. I can prove it. Attached was a PDF, JIT logs, commit history, internal emails, early sketches, even a selfie of me at 3 a.m. working on the prototype, timestamped and location tagged. I included the original neural net model with my digital signature. Ellen responded the next day with a single sentence, "I'll be watching." Then, I prepared the final update Matt had been begging for. He wanted a sleeker demo version, more responsive, more reactive. Flashy for the pitch. I gave it to him. A perfect simulation, polished and accelerated. But I also baked in a second layer. If the software detected a stage projector or mirrored output, it would auto-trigger the shutdown sequence at the exact 45-second mark. Just enough time for Matt to start basking in glory, right before everything fell apart. The night before the pitch, I sat in my tiny apartment, alone, watching his name flash across press previews. Tomorrow, they'd all see him. But then they'd see me. The conference hall at Innovitex was standing room only. Rows of venture capitalists, startup founders, and media outlets buzzed with anticipation. Matt stood backstage, soaking it in like he was born for the moment. He wore a tailored navy suit, and the smugness of a man convinced the world owed him success. I watched from the fifth row, tucked between two startup teams, my name not on any badge, just a plain guest pass Ellen had arranged for me. My hands were folded in my lap. My face blank. Next up, the announcer boomed, "We welcome Matt Carrington, founder of Caritech Labs, to present his revolutionary AI solution, M-Node." The crowd clapped. Matt took the stage. "Thank you," he said, flashing a rehearsed smile. "What we've built is going to change how AI integrates with edge devices. Fast, lightweight, scalable. We call it M-Node." He clicked the first slide. A slick demo began. The model responded to voice commands, completed predictive text, even translated in real time. A few heads in the audience nodded. Phones rose to record. "Notice the latency, barely 10 milliseconds on a Raspberry Pi," Matt said proudly. "That's due to our unique compression framework." 40 seconds in, the interface began to stutter. Matt blinked, tapped his remote. The screen flickered. Then, a new message bloomed across the main display, in bold white font on a black background, "Unauthorized execution detected. This model contains proprietary code authored by Camille. For licensing inquiries, please contact the rightful owner." The crowd fell silent. Matt froze. There was no backup slide. No plan B. He turned slowly toward the screen as if it might disappear if he stared hard enough. From the front row, Ellen Rivera stood up. She turned toward the audience. "I'd like to note for the record," she said calmly, "that we received verified documentation 2 days ago that this model was developed by Camille, not Mr. Carrington. We will be pausing all investment considerations pending an internal IP investigation." Murmurs rippled across the room. Cameras turned from the screen to Matt. Then to me. Matt's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. It's a bug. A prank, someone's messing with my files." Ellen raised an eyebrow. "You pitched a stolen idea, executed by someone you tried to silence. That's not a prank. That's fraud." I stood quietly. The audience parted slightly, all eyes now on me. Matt's face turned a sickly shade of red. The moderator stepped forward. "Miss Zhang, would you like to speak?" I nodded once. Took the mic. "I didn't come here to be dramatic," I said. "I came to reclaim what was mine. Not just my work, but my name." The days that followed were a whirlwind, but not for me. Matt was suspended from the company pending investigation. But before legal even finished reviewing the evidence, he quietly resigned. The HR manager, who had sided with him, she was let go after internal emails surfaced showing she'd helped fast-track his complaint against me, despite clear proof of my authorship in the system logs. The company issued a formal statement: "We regret the failure to properly credit Camille Zhang, the original creator of the M-node model. We are conducting a full audit of internal practices regarding IP ownership and attribution." But words were cheap. I didn't need an apology. I had already moved on. 3 weeks later, Caratech Labs shut down. Investors pulled out. Matt tried to rebrand, to spin the whole thing as a collaborative misunderstanding. But by then, the damage was done. Screenshots of the crash message from Innovatex had gone viral. His name was trending on tech blogs for all the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, Ellen Rivera called me with an offer. "I want to invest in you. Not just your model. You." So I launched Featherlight AI, with seed funding secured before the site even went live. I hired 2 of the junior developers Matt had misled. Gave them real contracts, real credit, real mentorship. My model, the actual model, was refined, expanded, and patented properly. We released it as open source for nonprofit research and offered enterprise licensing for commercial use. By Q3, we had 5 corporate clients and a glowing feature in Wired. 6 months after Innovatex, I gave a TED Talk titled, "How to Build Traps for Thieves and Opportunities for Yourself." I didn't name Matt once. I didn't need to. The room gave me a standing ovation. The final twist. At the afterparty, a man approached me. Nervous, unsure. "Camille, you don't remember me, but I was one of the judges at your high school science fair. The AI project. You came in second. I voted you first, but the others thought you were too quiet." I smiled. Good thing I'm not here to impress judges anymore. That night, I walked home alone, no entourage, no flash. Just quiet. Like always. But this time, everyone was listening.